Good evening, folks. Thank you for getting on the stream this evening. I am your host, Charles Sham. This is another episode of Let's Talk About It Now. I trust that everyone is at a fantastic afternoon and now evening. At least I pray that you did. We have an interesting subject tonight. As you can see the title, the modern woman has inherited the spirit of every man she slept with. Now, ladies, before you get yourself triggered by the title, before you get yourself upset by the title, this is not a stream to attack you. Just relax. It's not a stream to attack you. And if anything, what I would love for this stream to do is to edify you. And I would hope that you brothers who hear this stream don't feel as if I'm attacking you. But I would pray that this stream would edify you in what I'm going to share with you tonight. I'm going to come from a different perspective. I'm going to come from a different angle where the talking points are concerned. Because all too often we've had this conversation so much. I've done stream after stream after stream on dealing with the subjects of male and female relationships. Make no mistake and understand this, that no matter who speaks about these subjects, no matter who brings up these issues and topics, though true, the speaker is not perfect. Understand that the speaker has not identified what the perfect relationship is for his own personal life. Understand that. So again, like I've always said in previous streams, I have a perfect message coming from an imperfect vessel. So what I would say to you brothers, before you get yourself triggered on what I'm going to share tonight, just listen to what perspective, what angle I'm going to come from. Ladies, before you get yourself triggered, listen to what I'm going to say and from what angle I'm going to bring this subject from. Again, you see the title, The Modern Woman Has Inherited the Spirit of Every Man She Has Slept With. You're probably wondering, is that true? Yes, it is. Yes, it is, no doubt. No doubt about it. Shout out to Althea Marshall. Glad to see you on the stream tonight. Shout out to Gail. Good evening. Glad to have you on the stream tonight. Althea, I missed you, sister. I'm happy to see you on the stream tonight. Yeah. Thank you for getting on tonight. But again, ladies, don't get yourself upset. I want you to listen, really, with a critical ear as to what angle I'm coming with this subject. Okay? And with that being said, let's get this started. Let's go. Again, the title, The Modern Woman Has Inherited the Spirit of Every Man She Has Slept With. Why do I say that? Understand this, that whoever, ladies, whoever you have intimate relationship with, one thing that you find, those of you that read scripture, thank you, my sister. Those of you that know scripture, you also know that the Bible discusses an issue where two men, male and female, come together. There's a verse in the scripture that says, for this cause shall a woman leave her man, her father and her mother, and be joined unto her husband, and they shall become one flesh. Let's just take that. Just follow me. When a man and a woman come together, they do indeed become one flesh. I'm going to see if I can get you to understand, ladies, how you take on the spirit of every man you sleep with. I'm going to take my time and I'll do my very best to give you clarity and understanding as to what this means for you going forward into the future in terms of making the proper and effective decisions as it comes to you getting the best outcomes as it relates to relationships and or marriage. It's all going to be based on the decisions that you make as it relates to the men who you make decisions about becoming intimate with. Because think about it. If you take on the spirit of every man that you sleep with, now you have to ask yourself the question, what spirit did they have? What spirit did they have? Was it a good spirit Was it a demonic spirit? What kind of spirit did they have? And if I take on that spirit by becoming one during the act of intimacy, what spirit have I now become as a result of that decision? And ladies, for those of you that have had multiple relationships, I'm not trying to condemn you. I want you to listen to me without getting yourself triggered. For those of you who have had multiple relationships, who perhaps as a result of those multiple relationships, you now find yourself with children by multiple fathers. How do you feel about that? In a lot of situations and cases, you'll find that the fathers could care less about their children, right? How does that make you feel? You're angry, you're upset, you're disappointed. You feel like you've been played, like you've been taken advantage of, perhaps, right? And as a result, as you begin to experience that situation, one relationship after the next, mind you, not a real relationship, but one intimate relationship after the next, you find yourself becoming more and more and more angrier, more and more disappointed. Your self-esteem begins to get crushed to the earth more and more and more, till finally you don't even take into consideration who you sleep with. Because any attention at a certain point, once your self-esteem drops, ladies, understand this. I see Althea, thank you for that comment. You said, Althea says, disappointed but not angry. I was, though. I get it. But understand this, ladies. The more your self-esteem drops, the more it drops, by one encounter after the next, where you find yourself disappointed over and over and over again by dealing with men, right, who take advantage of you because you became sexually free too fast without asking the right questions. You in turn take on the spirit of the person that you slept with. Not only that, but you have DNA inside your body in most cases. Peace, my sister. Shout out to Afro Goddess for getting on the stream tonight. Peace, my sister. Happy to have you on the stream. As you encounter one relationship after the next, which in turn may be toxic, which in turn may not be what you were specifically looking for, you take on that spirit, ladies. You take on the spirit of the men you slept with. I'm going to explain something to you tonight that I hope you listen to carefully with a critical ear. That's going to tie everything that you've heard me talk about in every stream going back all the way to last year. But I want you to listen real close. Happy to have you too, sister, Afro Goddess. If you listen carefully and not allow yourself to get triggered, ladies, then you're going to understand something at the end of this stream that perhaps you had not thought about. It's going to make you understand and also make you see much more clearly, for those of you that have not been able to see clearly, what you're looking at when you go outside your front door. You're going to see and realize what's going on with every sister, every female that you encounter. And you're going to understand also the negative, toxic behavior, attitudes of men that are in the communities who share your reflection. I'm talking about the Pookies and the Nug-Nugs. I'm talking about the Ray Rays. I'm talking about the Killer Mikes, you know, the ones that give you sexual bliss, while in turn you get emotional distress. Let's get into it. Making of the whoremonger male. Follow me. Because understand this, ladies, it's the whoremonger male whose spirit you've taken on by making the wrong decisions and who you become sexually intimate with. Follow me. The crafty design of the white supremacist agenda. Post-civil rights era, and the success of the Civil Rights Bill of 1964. Follow me carefully. And the Voting Rights Bill, which was passed in 1965, 1 year later. This effectively angered whites and caused insecurities amongst whites during this time due to their fear that black men in particular would be viewed as a strong image of black manhood. But the black family and the fragmentation of such was the main focus. Follow me right here. Understand this. Once we got the Civil Rights Bill passed in 1964, and then the Voting Bill rights passed in 1965. Understand this. Pre-Civil Rights era, pre-voting rights era, we were one family. Fathers were with their wives. Men were with their wives. Men were fathers to their children. Oh, we didn't have much. No, we didn't have much. But the thing about it is women didn't ask for much. Women understood the importance of having a man in the house. They understood the importance and they knew the necessity of what a man meant to be in the house. Now, what happened? What happened? Because pre-Civil Rights Bill era, pre-voting rights era, the men in the homes who were with their wives, black women, we had a marriage rate upwards of 75 to 80%, ladies and gentlemen. 75 to 80%. We're down today, in modern day time, we are down to 26% and dropping like a rock. And dropping. In addition to the variations of relationships that are being introduced and supported and encouraged, of which I need no explanation for you to understand what I'm talking about. You know, this new drive, this new campaign of relationships. Yeah. I'm sure you understand exactly what I'm talking about. So post-Civil War era, post-voting rights era, we were together, again, married at an 80% rate. Today, we're married at a 26% rate. That's a significant drop. I want you to ask yourself a question as I continue. Who do you think the breakup of the black family benefited? Who do you think it benefited? It certainly didn't benefit us. That's for sure. That's for sure. But let's continue. Again, these two bills being passed effectively angered the white establishment in a huge way. In a huge way. And it instilled a lot of fear, right? It caused insecurities amongst the white community as a result of seeing now this former slave receive rights that only were privileged to white folks, white people who were in this country. They had civil rights. They didn't have to fight for civil rights. See, you only got to fight for civil rights when you're not considered a citizen. Understand that. So they knew nothing about the fighting of civil rights. They were already considered themselves citizens, right? Okay. They didn't have to worry about fighting for a voting bill. They already had the right to vote because only citizens were not did not receive pushback with the desire to vote. We're going somewhere. Just follow me. With this insecurity also came fear that black men in particular would be viewed as a strong image of black manhood. But the black family and the fragmentation of that same family was the primary focus. They understood that allowing the image of black men to be perceived as a necessary component where the family was concerned would ultimately lead to solid black communities and, as a result, strong, secure black children, especially young black boys. Why this posed a serious threat to the then status quo of the white male dominance is due to the fear that white women during that time, I want you to listen to this part right here. And for any of my white subscribers that listen to my stream, I want you to also maintain your emotions and not be triggered. Let's continue. Okay? This again would impact young black boys, and why this posed a serious threat to the then status quo of the white male dominance is due to the fear that white women during that time who secretly lusted after black men and who satisfied that lust for hundreds of years during slavery. Now, we know this to be true. How many of you seen that movie Mandingo? You remember the character who played the actor who played Mandingo? I believe his name was Fred Williamson, if I'm not mistaken. He was a slave on that particular plantation in that movie. He was summoned by the woman of the house, the slave master's wife, to come to the house. So the quote-unquote mammy of the house, which was the black housekeeper, she went and summoned for Mandingo to come to the master's house. She got to the master's house, and what happened? I'm gonna call her Lily White Sally, because I don't remember her name. So I'm gonna call her Lily White Sally. Lily White Sally, she called Mandingo upstairs. So Mandingo took himself on upstairs, and only to find Lily White Sally disrobing herself in front of Mandingo. He had never been that close to a white woman in his life. Now, mind you, during slavery, black women who did not have the privilege nor the access to do their hair. They did not have the privilege nor the access to necessarily keep their body washed properly. Who did not have the privilege nor the access to wear deodorant properly, the way we wear it today. They didn't have the privilege nor the access to wear body oils and body sprays to make themselves smell pleasant to their husbands. So in a lot of ways, working from sun up to sundown, their bodies was sweaty, and you may have smelled a little musk under their armpits, and they didn't smell so good. But if that's all their husbands was used to smelling, I'm sure it didn't smell offensive to them. So imagine Mandingo getting around Lily White Sally, right? She has access to body oils and sprays, right? She smells a little different. She disrobes herself, and she forces him to have intercourse with her, even though he refused at first, until she threatened him that she would tell the slave master once he returned that he had physically raped her. We know, and take it easy, take it easy, YouTube. I'm gonna back up off that word rape. I'm gonna say grape. You know, I know YouTube, you're kind of funny, so I'm gonna use the word grape. All right. She threatened him that she would tell the slave master that he raped her if, in fact, he didn't comply with her request. So, if you look at the movie, you can see they showed the camera on his face. He had a look in his face as if he knew he was going to die, no matter what direction this story went. And that's, in fact, ultimately what happened. Now, why is that story important? Because, again, it goes back to what this whole idea that began. It's all of this is going to tie into the subject tonight, where it says the modern woman has inherited the spirit of every man she slept with. It's all going to tie into that. Just follow me. Again, the insecurities that took place post-civil rights bill, right? And post-voting rights bill. Their insecurities came because they didn't want to see a better image that would be portrayed in the communities once we received these rights, they knew that we would then feel as though we were given the right to move forward in accomplishing some of our own dreams, such as getting businesses and just beginning to thrive in our communities, where we have been being held back. Mind you, they knew also that their women was lusting after black men, no doubt. You know, it's like that old thing that we used to hear when we were growing up. You always seem to want the thing that you're told not to touch. You know, it's almost like a human urge. I can remember when I was a kid, and my mother would leave the house, and there'd be a jar of cookies, and she would say, "Charles, don't touch those cookies because it's too close to dinner." You know, I would say, "Okay, mommy," with the most innocent look on my face. And I remember watching her through the window, peeking through the shades, and I'd wait till the car pulled off just long enough to where I knew she was out of the area. And I'd go and sneak me 2 cookies, right? And then move the cookies around and put the top back on as if she didn't know. Only to find out that my mother had counted every single cookie. She counted every single cookie that was in the jar. So she'd come home and knew that I took 2 cookies. You know, it's something about the human that when you tell them that they can't do something, they lust for it. Well, this was the case where white women were concerned in this country, where black men are concerned. You know, they had the privilege, I would say the access, I don't know about a privilege, they had the access of seeing us naked when we were brought to these particular plantations. They had the opportunity of standing before many black men and watching them strip down naked. So they saw what black men were endowed with, if you will. Okay? And it was like, wow, man. Now, mind you, this lust followed. White men were very, very insecure when it came to this. You say, well, Charles, get out of here, man. All right, well, let's go with that. During slavery, and for those of you that know this to be true, what's one of the main things they did to slaves, male slaves, when they rebelled or anything like that? They would castrate them, correct? And in many cases, they would cut off their, you know what it is, and they would let them bleed out until they died. Now, I'm saying that for a reason. They cut off the very thing that they were most insecure about. That's why I'm using these examples, and that's why I'm belaboring these examples, so you can see where this insecurities rooted into, as in connection to us prospering and thriving from a financial standpoint as a community. With that, you're going to see what I'm going to say next. Why it was so important for them to paint a picture in the minds of not only black women, but in the minds of white women as well, where black men are concerned. This is going to make sense to you in a few more minutes. Just hold on and follow me. They, again, the fragmentation of the family was the focus, ladies and gentlemen. They understood that allowing the image of black men to be perceived, where black women were concerned, as a necessary component in the family, would ultimately lead to a solid black community. And as a result, strong, secure black children. And I would say especially, again, young black boys. I want you to pay attention to how that affected young black boys today. Because I'll tell you something, this idea, this agenda that started way back in the 60s has already matured into a full-grown monster today. And if you don't believe it, how are the young black boys today? How are they today? Yours, your next door neighbors, mine, and anyone else who has young black boys. We are at war to go against these narratives because we are losing our young men. No doubt. And I know you know this. We are losing our young men. They are gone, man. If they're not violent, they're effeminate. If they're not gone by way of violence, worst case scenario, losing their life or in prison, they're effeminate. And the ones who are still good in the communities, who are not in prison and who are not effeminate, they're hard pressed to find a woman who fits the qualifications of being anybody's wife. And you're going to understand why this happened to you ladies with what I'm going to explain next. Again, shout out to Gail Reed for getting on the stream. Shout out to Althea. Shout out to Afro Goddess. I appreciate you for getting on the stream tonight. And you know, you're going to realize as I go forward how this has affected all of us as men, black men in particular, and how this has affected black women in particular, and why it seems to be so difficult for us today to come together. Or we can come together and have sex. Yes, that's never been a problem. We can come together and have all the sex you want to have. But that seems to be the only way we can come together today. We have a gender war going on, and we don't know who started it. But what I intend to do tonight, before we finish, and we're not going to be much longer, is to expose the warmonger that created the war that's going on between us, black men in particular, black women in particular, which has on the internet and on YouTube, and had myself. As you've heard me say before, we build it as we fly. We build it as we fly, folks. Which means, irregardless of how pure your intent is, you still understand that knowledge is constant. Change is constant. So, shout out to Abdul for getting on the stream. Change is constant. So if change is constant, that means we as individuals can also change. We can think we know something on a Monday, but things change by Wednesday. And you can think you know something Wednesday and things change and you get more improved by Friday. So what I'm beginning to understand and what I'm beginning to realize and see with the conversations and talking points of what's known and described as the manosphere, what's known as described as the red pill community, is a product of the talking points of division, but nobody's talking about the warmonger that started the division that caused today now to be a gender war between black men and black women. No. I believe if black women can be held accountable for their bad behaviors, if we can spend hours talking about what black women are doing and what they're not doing and what makes them disqualified for being a wife, which I've done in many streams, I believe we have a responsibility to make men accountable for what we're doing that created the problem, because we both of us, men and women, we both have been bamboozled. We both have been run amok. We both have been led astray. We both have been sold a lie. And all of it was designed to fragment the black family, and they have successfully done it. Today, we are only a remnant. We are torn rags, torn fragments of fabric that used to be a well put together family. Today, this is what you're looking at, folks. Today, this is what you're looking at. Follow me. Again, they understood that by allowing the image of black men to be perceived as a necessary component for you, ladies, black women in particular. They couldn't allow him for a long extended period of time to be perceived as a necessary component where you were concerned. They couldn't allow that, not post civil rights and not post voting rights. They had to find a way to still maintain control. Follow me. Why this posed a serious threat to them is because of a few different things. It presented danger with the status quo, where white men wanted to maintain their dominance in the society. It posed a threat. You understand? It posed a threat. They couldn't allow it to happen. All right. And the goal was to distort the mindset. Understand this. I want you to really listen to this part. The goal was to distort the mindset of black men, to mess up our heads as black men. Distort the mindset of black men and create a wedge between black men and black women and the white woman. This was the beginning of what's known today as whoremonger culture. The attack against the black family started first by telling black women that they could be part of the white woman's feminist movement if she joined that movement. She could become like the American white woman in this society. In other words, the lie was you could become a part of this society. You could be equal with us. The woman power. As if black women were considered equal to white women at that time in the 60s. But see, our desire to be equal, our desire, both male and female, who represented the black community, our desire to be treated equally, to be treated fairly, and to not be misused and abused as we had been so often, experienced for so many years. We were looking for that breath of fresh air. So here comes the feminist movement, which was represented by women. And black women were told that we'll let you join us, and by joining us, you'll be equal with us. How did that hurt the black community? I'm glad you asked, because here's what happened next. After they convinced successfully black women to join the feminist movement, and for those of you that really don't understand the feminist movement was a movement that started with white women in this country who were upset, disappointed against their own white patriarchy because they felt they were being deprived of privileges and being deprived of certain rights. So they fought and gave pushback against their own government, of which black women, ladies, you had nothing to do with. You were not even considered a citizen at the time that the feminist movement began. Originally, it started at its inception in the 30s. It came to full birth in the 60s. At this time, brothers and sisters, we were under Jim Crow law. We were under Jim Crow law. You already knew that you had to go to the back of the bus. What were you fighting for, ladies? What were you fighting for by being a member of the feminist movement? We're getting somewhere. I'm just throwing a question out there for you ladies that watch this stream. For however many of you watch it later, what exactly were you fighting for? We were already under Jim Crow law. We knew we had to go to the back of the bus. We already knew we couldn't drink out of certain water fountains, no matter how hot it was. We already knew there were certain public pools we could not get in. We already knew we couldn't go into certain restaurants. We already knew that we were considered at that time, and even today, in many respects, the permanent underclass. No matter how many privileges we receive, don't you get yourself bamboozled again to realize, to believe that today, all of a sudden, something's changed because you have a few actors and a few celebrities in the music industry. No. See, that's another part of the trick in the bamboozle. See, success of a few is not the success of an entire nation. So don't get yourself fooled by that. But ladies, what were you exactly fighting for? If you think about it, you're fighting for nothing that you could actually describe today that would make any sense. Because the only thing that happened is it caused you to believe that you didn't need your man anymore. You know, the same man that was with you and you were with him through the worst struggles that any human could experience. Coming up through chattel slavery, all the way up to the point where slavery was quote unquote abolished, all the way up into the point where we were fighting for our own rights and being shot, killed, hung, strange fruit, hung from trees all throughout the South, strange fruit. We were together. We were together. You were with your husband and he was with you. Many of you lost your husbands because of this era. Many black women lost their husbands on railroad tracks, hanging, like I said, strange fruit from trees all up and down the South, shot down in the street, all the way until we got into the 60s where dogs were sick on us. We were still together. We still had a strong, cohesive family structure, married again at a 75 to 80% rate. What has happened to us that today we are married at 26% and dropping, folks? Our children are gone, lost, all over the place. As new things began to be introduced, the feminization of black men, the feminizing of men in general, black men in particular, leaves the image of strong black men lost in the minds of young black boys. Do you see what happened? Do you see what happened? Do you understand the campaign that we're under right now? I know many of you have become go along to get along Negroes. Oh, I already know. Many of you have already sold out. I already know. Many of you have already made up your mind that it's better to kind of not give pushback, even those of you that claim to be men and women of God. Many of you are about as weak as a marshmallow on a hot summer day on the sidewalk because you just gave up, because the conditions require someone strong. The conditions require a man that has a backbone and a spine and is not afraid. If this is ever going to be dealt with and addressed, he cannot be afraid to make his statements public, and he cannot be afraid to galvanize the men who still have a backbone to address the issues. Because otherwise we're lost, folks. We're lost if we don't. Otherwise we're lost if we don't. You know? Understand how important this was. Why was the importance of distorting the image among black women so very important? And how did they do it? Glad you asked. As we get closer to closing out this stream tonight, I want to close it, and I want to close it strong with you understanding exactly what you're looking at. Again, the goal was to distort the mindset of black men and create a wedge between black men and women, in which we know they have been successful at doing, and to also create that same wedge with white women, but not by the same effect. Okay? This was the beginning of what's known as the whoremonger culture. The attack against the black family started first by telling black women that they could be a part of the white woman's feminist movement, and if she joined again, that she could become like the white woman in this society. But it was a very dangerous deception, and with an end goal of killing two birds with one stone. That was the end goal. The second part of the assault was the promotion of the pimp culture, directed by black men and directed to black men to make him less attractive to his own woman and feared by white women, by promoting stereotypes that the black man was incapable of being responsible, a father, head of household, and being a provider male for his family. Prior to the Civil Rights Act of 1964 and the Voting Rights Bill of 1965 was the essence, controlled their own narrative. What do I mean by that? I mean, prior to 1964 and prior to 1965 of those two bills being passed, black men controlled the narrative of how we were viewed in the community. Why? Because black men told their daughters and showed their daughters what the blueprint was to look for when they chose a mate, when they chose a husband. They were told by their fathers and their mothers displayed the behavior, the attitude, the conduct as it related to the interactions with that man in that house. So she knew what femininity was. Oh yeah, she knew what being a wife was, and she also knew what serving her husband meant. It wasn't a bad idea. Understand? It was something to look forward to doing prior to 1964 and 1965. Black men and black women, we created our own narrative. We told our own goddamn story. Now our story is being written and it's being told by somebody else, and you have no control over the publishing. You have no control over the publishing. Follow me. It says here, this is a very dangerous deception for you. This idea, ladies, of feminism. Again, we control our own narrative post 1964, 1965. And we did this by teaching our daughters the value and necessity of having a man in the home who, in fact, is masculine. Not effeminate, but masculine. The campaign promoting the pimp culture as a black man being sexually irresponsible and possessing angry, violent tendencies, right? That black women and white women should fear. Essential. This was during a time when Jim Crow, as I said earlier in the stream, was at an all-time high. This was the way of life in the United States. This was a way of life. Black people had learned to navigate around what we could not change at that time. Imagine living every day of your life. Imagine this, from sunup to sundown, day in and day out, from day to day, week to week, month to month, year to year, having to educate your children on how to navigate themselves through this kind of climate of racism under Jim Crow law. But yet we were together. That's my biggest point I'm making, ladies and gentlemen. Understand, brothers, understand, men, what has happened to you. If you think the whole idea is about you identifying yourself as a man by going out into the communities with women that share your own reflection, and the idea of your manhood is to pump and dump, shoot up the club, leave the bodies on the floor, and don't take no responsibility for the bodies you left on the damn floor. You know what the bodies are that I'm talking about. I'm talking about the babies that you leave, bruh. That's what I'm talking about. I'm talking about you shooting up the club and leaving the bodies on the floor, but you won't go back and take responsibility for the bodies you left on the floor, man. Yeah, I'm talking to you, bruh. I'm talking to you pump and dump brothers that think that's cool, and you think that's manhood, and you think that identifies you as something to have respect for. No, it does not. It makes you, and you are making us, those of us that have morals, those of us that have some type of fortitude. You're making black men look bad all over the world when you do that. And you don't deserve no respect. Not only that, you don't deserve to be married to anybody. You're not marriage material either, bruh. You're not marriage material either. Now, back to my sisters. based on what you've conditioned yourself to believe, in being so sexually promiscuous with yourself, at what point, ladies, will you stop getting yourself triggered? At what point will you stop getting yourself upset and begin to clearly see with your eyes wide open instead of eyes wide shut that all of the sisters who share your reflection in every community, every movie that you see, power. I know y'all like power. I know. But who's painting the narrative? I know you like power. Isn't it funny how they would name it power when black communities have no damn power? Ain't that funny? Isn't it funny how they would name it power and then associate that same power with loose, promiscuous behavior in the movie and the acquisition of drugs and drug dealing and murder? Isn't it funny how you see the perpetration of black on black crime, the distribution of drugs, ODs, and addictions, and promiscuous sex, where the black community is concerned while acquiring large amounts of money, and yet they call it power? Don't you understand who's writing your story today? That's who's writing your story. Brothers and sisters, that's who's writing your story today. Don't you want to write your own story? Aren't you tired of somebody writing your story for you? First it was power, then it was empire. Come on, we can go down the list. We can go down the list with all these stereotyped movies. We can go down the list, man. Show me the movies that they actually put forth in front of us. All of our heroes, all of our masculine men who represented masculine, strong men who held down their families and were fathers to their children, they destroyed that. They don't want you to look at Cosby's show anymore. Instead, they want to make you think he was some dirty man back in the day. Destroy our heroes left and right. And Cosby's show was a show that we looked up to because it showed a strong black image in front of us. It showed a strong black image. They don't want you to look at the Jeffersons. Another movie has some funny elements, some comedic elements, but no one can deny that this show gave black people in the poor communities a sense of hope. Because here you had a masculine man who had a wife, who had very productive children, who were not on drugs, who were not in gangs, who were not living the alternative lifestyle, right? And you had a family who moved from the projects in the Bronx, working for a white laundromat owner, watching the movements and the business way of doing business under this industry, studied it as an employee who was just simply delivering laundry. He watched it, studied it, said, I'm gonna start my own laundromat. And from one laundromat led to another laundromat, and to another laundromat, until finally they moved from the Bronx in the projects to the Upper East Side, to the Lower East Side. And that's where you got that song, We're Moving On Up, right? But it showed you something for poor black men, poor black women who lived in poor neighborhoods, which many of us came from. Unlike many of us, I grew up in the projects. I have nothing against the projects. I'm just trying to make a point. This gave hope to us. I want you to use those examples, the Cosby Show. I want you to use the example of the Jeffersons. I want you to use the example of, let's even use the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. There was some comedic elements of that show, yes. There was even some silly buffoonery in that show, yes. But the overall image of that show showed a strong masculine black man who was in fact productive, successful, and his wife was also productive and successful, who had very bougie kids, I will say, but they weren't on drugs. They weren't selling drugs, and they weren't in gangs, and they weren't playing with weapons. You understand my point, brothers and sisters? Our image has been so distorted today, that for every bad experience, ladies, that you have had, understand that we've both been played. Black men have been played to believe that their manhood is between their legs. And brothers, if you're watching the stream and you get mad, so what? You know how many YouTube content creators are on YouTube? Just log off of mine and go watch somebody else. Because we as black men have to take accountability as well. All right. So if you have a problem with taking accountability yourself, then don't open your mouth asking black women and women in general to take accountability for their bad behavior. If we're going to have this conversation, then let's have it. But both of us have an accountability to address. That's what I'm saying. And this is what these conversations from Let's Talk About It Now are going to be directed at. It's going to be directed at not just ladies, not just women in general, and black women in particular, but my conversations will in fact be directed at both of us. Because we together are a family. We together is what make up a community. And until we understand that we are better together than we are apart, then we'll have this gender war, this stupid gender war that's going on. You know? Ladies, I will tell you, you better start opening your ears to listen, or you will finish the rest of your life alone, man. Brothers, you need to open your ears and listen as well, or you will continue being the whoremonger male that many of you have become while thinking that you're actually a man. No. So we're going to have this conversation going forward. This is what we're going to do on Let's Talk About It Now. Now, mind you, again, as we close, this changing of the mindset where black men are concerned towards where white women and where black women in particular was concerned. It was paramount. They had to do this. And ladies and gentlemen, if you watch how our story is being told today, how is black men being represented? Would you say we're being represented in a strong masculine way, or would you say we're being represented in a more soft, passive, feminine way? Right? Well, I think we're being represented in the wrong way today. And I think our women are also being represented in the wrong way as well. And it's not until we, black men and black women, come together, understanding that we need each other and that we're better together than we are apart, and have these real conversations and then begin to take accountability on both sides. Again, like I said in my last stream, the pendulum swings in both directions. It truly does. It's not a one-sided affair. We've both been tricked. This is why we're separated today. This is why there's a hatred for black men where black women are concerned. And this is why in many cases there's a hatred where black men are concerned, where black women are concerned. This is why, you know. And today this mindset continues in a much more institutionalized way, family, which permeates every society around the world where black family structure is concerned. We have to turn this thing around. I hope that this stream tonight, for many of you, opened up your eyes to realize what you're looking at, to also take introspective at perhaps what your own behavior may be to contribute to the problems that you see. And for brothers who watch this stream, those of you that are content creators right now, and those of you that are not content creators, you're watching my stream, I hope this stream gave some insight to you as well. If you, brothers, can put your ego aside, find a bag and take your ego, because you know our egos can be, they can be, oh man, you know, Our egos, brother, can be so big, man. Somebody could be telling, a man could be telling us a train is coming, and we're standing on the track, and we'll stand there and pretend and act as if we know what we're doing until the train hits us. So, brothers, if you can put your ego aside and just listen to what I spoke and shared within this stream tonight, and we can begin slowly to turn our talking points in a direction that can bring us back together. I mean, after all, don't you want your woman? Don't you want your woman? I do. Don't you want your woman? I hope so. I hope you haven't been that deceived into thinking there's some other woman better than yours. I hope you haven't been that bamboozled. I hope not. I hope not. You know, I mean, some of you guys are lost, so you're not going to get it anyway. But for those of you that still have an ear to hear, I hope this stream helped you. And with that being said, folks, I thank all of you for getting on the stream tonight. Shout out again to Afro Goddess for getting on the stream. Thank you for your engagement, my sister. Abdul said the black family is damaged and needs to be fixed. Afro Goddess said, now you're talking, brother. Thank you, my sister. Shout out to you all for getting on the stream tonight. Hey, I love you. Thank you all for your support of me over the last 11 months. I couldn't have done anything without you guys and your support. And with that being said, we are out. Have a fantastic, positive evening. Have a wonderful day tomorrow. Positive day this week. Enjoy your weekend. And I'll see you on the next stream, folks. The next stream will be tomorrow night. I'll get back to you on the subject title. But I hope this stream, I hope you got blessed from this stream. That being said, have a fantastic night, folks. God bless. We are out.